Good morning, everybody. This is Lillian too, coming to you from Malaysia, Kuala Lumpur, where I'm sure some of you have been and visited to lately. Malaysia has been very much in the news, not necessarily for all the right reasons, but I think the world is beginning to discover what a great and beautiful, wonderful country Malaysia is. So for all of you who haven't visited us before, I bid you a warm welcome. Come and visit Malaysia, Kuala Lumpur. Come and visit me. But for now, what I'm doing today is to give you the introduction to my online Flying Star Feng Shui course. This is a very special aspect of Feng Shui, of the study of Feng Shui. And what we'll do today is to give you an overview of what Feng Shui really is. I mean, there have been so many books written about Feng Shui by so many wonderful people. Ever since my complete illustrated guide to Feng Shui was published nearly 20 years ago. I think it was exactly about 15, 16 years ago. But it's been wonderful because there has been an explosion of interest in Feng Shui all over the world. And I personally welcome this great interest in Feng Shui. And Feng Shui is very, very important for the simple reason that it deals with so many aspects of living. Everything in our life is affected and influenced by Feng Shui. And Feng Shui literally means wind and water, because we're influenced by the winds and we're influenced by the waters of the world. The winds and waters of the world has carved out the environment, okay? But it is very important that you realize what Feng Shui really is. It is not just about placement. It is not just about directions. And of course, these are very important aspects of Feng Shui. But Feng Shui, this ancient science, is a really powerful living skill. It is a skill for life. And it's wonderful to learn a little bit about Feng Shui because it has the power and the capability to make your life a lot more pleasant. You know, like if you have problems that have to do with your health, problems that have to do with your relationships, and problems that have to do with your financial stability, then you can turn to Feng Shui for solutions. And that's the great, wonderful part of Feng Shui. Okay? Now, I want to tell you that Feng Shui is an ancient skill. It is not a modern skill. It has to be adapted for modern living. And I always tell people, you don't need to know Chinese. You don't have to be a Chinese to be an expert on Feng Shui. And you don't need to be an expert in the Chinese language either. Because a lot of Feng Shui is common sense. It's what we call conventional wisdom. But it is a very well-constructed body outline, of course, okay, which brings together all the ancient wisdoms that were put together by some really great people who lived thousands of years ago. There is a spiritual aspect of Feng Shui. There must have been for all these wonderful people to have put it so well together and for it to have lasted all these years. So what is important is to know the first thing, that it is an ancient science. It was actually formulated at a time when a lot of the modern aspects of living, like living in the cities, living in apartments, living up in the air, living with the kind of modern conveniences we have, these things did not exist in those days. But now they do. And therefore, we have to adapt the applications of what we learn to the modern age. So within this context, I would like you to learn Flying Star Feng Shui within this context. And I also want to set into perspective what Flying Star Feng Shui is. Okay, the Chinese name for Flying Star, it is a branch of Xuan Feng Shui, Xuan Feng Shui. I usually don't like to use the Chinese names because my audience is mainly English speaking, like you. And you are comfortable with the English language, and so am I, okay? There's nothing great about it. I grew up in Malaysia. In Malaysia, we have three major races. We have the Chinese, the Muslims, and the Indians. These represent three great cultures of the world. So I've been very privileged to live within such a multi-racial context. I grew up having great respect for all these ancient traditions. And so I studied them one by one. But somehow, maybe because I'm of Chinese origin, I really felt myself very drawn towards the Chinese ancient wisdoms, of which Feng Shui is just one of several. Now, before we begin, I want to tell you that when you practice Feng Shui, you actually require knowledge of 3 dimensions. There are 3 dimensions to the practice of Feng Shui. No matter how you look at it, no matter what you believe in, even whether you subscribe to my view that Feng Shui needs to be adapted to modern life or not. Okay, no matter how we look at it, there are 3 aspects to Feng Shui, and we have to pay equal respect to each of these dimensions of Feng Shui, these 3 aspects of Feng Shui. There is the Feng Shui that addresses the concept of space, your space around you. And because I respect my space so much, my space over the years has somehow grown bigger and bigger. I used to live in this small house, but it's the same house. It somehow grew. And when I outgrew the space, the land that I own, I successfully bought the next piece of land and the next piece. So that today I have wonderful space. I have good space Feng Shui. And you must learn about space Feng Shui. And that's the most basic, fundamental aspect of Feng Shui. Then the next dimension of Feng Shui is the dimension of time. Okay? You have to understand that energies change, evolve, transform over time. Okay? Time dimension of Feng Shui is even more powerful than space dimension, because you can have the most well Feng Shuied space, but when the time comes, the astrological aspects of Feng Shui hit you, or the flying stars change, and that's where flying star comes in, then you could get really badly affected by bad Feng Shui, by bad Feng Shui winds, bad winds. And this is the time dimension. And you know, this course on flying star Feng Shui is actually all about having good time dimension Feng Shui. Because flying star Feng Shui has to do with changing energies, how energies change from day to day, from week to week, from month to month, from year to year, from period to period. So there has actually been a very well-formulated, well-structured look at how time changes. We call this the cycles of time. And whether we like it or not, cycles of time exert the fullest effect on one's well-being, and therefore on one's Feng Shui. So this is what this course on Flying Star Feng Shui will be all about. I will share with you, okay, precious secrets of the Flying Star formula, which is a compass-based formula, of the Flying Star practice, which is the practical application. And knowing the formula is one thing, but you need to apply Flying Star carefully. And you know, my friends, you don't need to know so many formulas. It's not necessary. What is important is actually to apply just one formula really well. And you know, in the scheme of things, I actually am not a great believer of applying too many formulas, because you just get all mixed up. Okay, of course it sounds good on your CV, just like if you graduate from many universities. Wow, it's so impressive. But you know, my friends, I graduated from one great university, and that was good enough for me. And it's lasted all these years. I started life in a very humble university, which, by the way, was a great university because I learned a great deal. Then I went to a world-famous university called Harvard. I'm sure some of you have heard of it. But it was wonderful, and it was good enough for me because it taught me so many things, not just about the skill I was learning. In this case, it was business administration, but about life. Because in my class, I had so many different people from so many different walks of life, and I enjoyed it a lot, and I learned a lot. And over the years, I graduated from Harvard 35 years ago, over 35 years ago. That was how long it's been. And you know, until today, I have been benefiting from what I learned, from my classmates, from the courses I learned. And and I actually taught me a lot about business. So you do not need so many formulas. You do not need to learn from so many people, because what happens is you can just get pretty confused. And of course, your loyalties are always towards this person that you've just learned from, and then you go to the next. And all teachers are good. There are no bad teachers. Those who have lasted over time are good. Okay, they teach you good stuff. It's only who you have great affinity with. Okay, so this is the basis upon which we learn feng shui. Look on it as a skill. Look on it as some kind of formula that you're picking up. Okay, and from that basis, if you learn, of course, not all the teachers are going to agree on everything, and that's good, because that's what knowledge is about. All right, take a really broad-minded view in your practice of feng shui. And I really pray, I really hope that those of you who have subscribed to this course, that you will get not only an added knowledge aspect to your practice of living, but that it will really truly benefit you. And along the way, maybe I will also share with you some of my feelings about life in general, about the attitudes we have to take, not just towards the skill, not just towards the placement of stuff, not just towards one's applications and analysis of charts, using your own input, because when you analyze charts and you put that into practice into your homes, you have to input your own analysis, your own interpretation. So therefore, how you look on the formulas is very important, and also how the formulas have been conveyed and taught to you. I always tell people, I'm an old lady, but you know, my heart is so young. I am as young as my children, and I'm so lucky because I have children who are very smart, who are very clever. They're young, but they also have a great respect for their elders. And just like me, they have a great respect for conventional wisdom. We're old-fashioned, you might like to say, but we're also modern people. And we like to take pride in that. And it is from that perspective that we practice feng shui. So Flying Star Feng Shui addresses the changing nature of energies. That energy changes from day to day, from week to week, from month to month, from year to year, from 20-year period to 20-year period. Okay? And this is something that we will address in this course. But there is a third dimension to feng shui. And the third dimension to feng shui has to do with the spiritual dimension. And hey, my friends, you cannot, nobody would dare to dismiss the spiritual dimension, because they're all around us. There are parallel realms that exist with our realm. There are parallel levels of existence. There are lots and lots of spirits. And you know who are the greatest people who really know about spirits? The Chinese know about spirits. That's why if you watch Chinese movies, tons and tons of movies about spirits. You can call them ghosts, you can call them hauntings, you can call them anything like that. There are good spirits and bad spirits. The spirits of the water, spirits of fire, spirits of the air, spirits of the earth, spirits of the plants. And they all have the potential to help you or to harm you. So rather than get them to be your enemies, the spiritual aspect of feng shui is to make friends with the spirits. And there are easy ways to make friends with the spirits. So the spiritual dimension of feng shui has to do with what we call conventionally magic. What is magic? Magic is merely something that deals with energy that you don't understand. Okay, you don't always have to see these things to believe. You know, sometimes there's no visual object to see. Sometimes it's invisible. Sometimes you cannot even hear them. Sometimes you don't even know of the presence of the spirits. And therefore you need protectors. You need protection from bad spirits or spirits who are naughty. And let me tell you, there are lots of naughty spirits around. So there is a spiritual dimension to feng shui. You can do your feng shui very well. Your space and your time. The spirit come and disturb you, makes you sick, blocks you, so you can't see things, make you forgetful. Sometimes you can't even find your car keys. You get delayed. Sometimes the delay is good for you. sometimes the delay is not so good. There are so many ways to look at it. So therefore, we have the space dimension, the time dimension, and the spiritual dimension of Feng Shui. And if you look at the movie world today, coming out of Hollywood, they are addressing all three of these dimensions. They don't call it by the same names, okay? But they deal very much with Feng Shui. Let me tell you about the space, about the time, and more so lately about the spiritual aspects of living. And of course, in spiritual Feng Shui, you have the good side and you have the dark side. And when you deal with spiritual Feng Shui, you must understand about the dark side. Okay? That's why Angelina Jolie understands the dark side, but she's good. But she knows that unless you have the dark side, you do not know what the white side is. It has to do with relativity. Albert Einstein's theory of relativity, which is basically yin and yang. If you don't know what yin is, how do you know what yang is? For example, if you have never ever seen light, you don't know about darkness. You don't know that even though you live in darkness, that it is darkness. But the minute you see light, you know what darkness is. The minute you see the sun, you know what the moon is and what darkness is. Just like if you have never felt the cold, you do not know what heat is. You understand what I mean? So the yin gives rise to the yang, or gives existence to the yang, and the yang gives existence to the yin. So therefore, in Feng Shui, it is the same. The yin and the yang permeates all three dimensions of space, time, and spiritual Feng Shui. Now, the basic fundamental things about Feng Shui apply across the three dimensions. So today, what I'm doing is going to give you giving you an introduction to time dimension of Feng Shui. But before we understand time, let me talk very quickly about space dimension. What is space dimension Feng Shui? These are the classical forms and landscapes of Feng Shui, the mountains, the rivers, the valleys that we study. And we see, wow, my house is here, behind me is the mountain, on the left side is a mountain, in front of me is the river. That's space dimension. It has to do with forms and landscapes. It has to do with analysis of surrounding buildings, the highways, okay? It has to do with the green dragon and the white tiger. Changlong, green dragon, Pak Fu, white tiger. But it also has to do with the backing, the support that you get from something solid, a hill, a mountain. And we call that the black tortoise. And it's always good to have support, just like sitting in a chair. When you have support, there's someone protecting you. Okay, so that's the tortoise, and of course in front we have the bird, the crimson bird, the phoenix. Okay, it's like a footstool, but more than that, the bird brings you opportunities, comes and lands on your hand. Okay, so basically that's the formation of good Feng Shui, and it's reflected in Yin Feng Shui as well as Yang Feng Shui, and that is the Feng Shui of space, and it is very powerful. Space dimension Feng Shui is very powerful. It's not easy to practice because you have to be experienced in order to gauge the environment. Of course, it's not so straightforward. You have to look at the smell of the winds, the quality of the air, the quality of the soil. Look at the soil, what color it is, what element it is, what kind of plants are supporting you, what kind of river. Is it blue river, a green river, a black river? Yes, my dear friends, there are many aspects of space dimension Feng Shui, but it is harder to practice. And today's concept, in today's context, in today's environment, many of us, many of you live in the city. So in the city, the rivers don't exist, but you have the roads. You may have one or two rivers, but basically you have roads. And the roads are like the rivers in their impact on you. And then you have buildings. So you don't live amongst mountains, but you live amongst high-rise buildings. But you don't live just on the building like that. What you do is you live inside apartments. You have your own little space, okay? And what is out there, the big environment out there, it exerts an impact on your well-being, on your health, on whether you succeed or not, on your relationships, on everything that has to do with feng shui. But guess what? It's hard to practice because, you know, my friends, you have no control over your environment. You have no control, really, over the building across the road. If they're sending you a poison arrow, very little you can do. Very little. Okay? If you have a road that seems to cut into your apartment, there's very little you can do. Unless you come and learn from me, I'll teach you how to handle these things. But at most, they diffuse the effect. They cannot altogether do away with the negative impact of the environment. So space dimension feng shui very much has to do with the environment. But time dimension feng shui, when we look at flying star feng shui, we look not just at the time dimension, but we look how to arrange our space according to changing energies. That's the secret. Okay? Now, you can call flying star feng shui xuan gong feng shui because it is one of the more powerful branches of xuan gong feng shui. And by the way, xuan gong feng shui has many different branches. You can use xuan gong to even make destiny analysis. Some feng shui masters focus on xuan gong as a destiny analytical tool. Okay, so for me, I would much rather focus on a skill, on a formula that actually works, that's easy to apply. You do it this way, you follow it, you follow the changes, you capture the formula, you do it, and it works. And it works. Now, how do I know it works? Because when I'm sick and I kill the flying star, illness star, I actually get well. I put a cure and I get well. Okay? Like, for example, when I have the 5 yellow, which is a misfortune star in flying star feng shui, and it flies into my bedroom, and I put a cure there, it works. And before I put the cure there, I was having all kinds of bad luck. Everything goes wrong. Setback, obstacle, quarreling with people. The minute you put the cure there, it sorts itself out. For me, it's about reducing the aggravations of my life. And also sometimes these aggravations are so important because if it happens on a day when you are having a very important meeting or an interview and it hits you, boy oh boy, the effect can be life transforming, can be life changing. And that is how we should use flying star. And that is how I will teach you to use flying star. Okay? Now, flying star is also the perfect formula to learn for city living, for urban living. Why? Because it's very accurate, it's very methodical, it's almost like a cookbook approach you take. What do you do? How do you do it? How do you start analyzing your feng shui based on flying star formula? How do you use the compass? How do you demarcate the sectors? I will teach you all these things. How you use the compass, even reading the compass, even getting the right compass. We've made it so easy because, you see, I went to Harvard. I learned how to do business. I said to myself, what does anybody need to do all this? Make all these tools available. So I systematically got these tools available. On top of that, you need the cures and the enhancers. And so I systematically did research in these things, found the sources of supply to make these products, and made them available to the world, and make it easy. Because what's the use of using flying star if you don't know how to correct it? It's not just about shifting your furniture. It's about placing cures and enhancers. And from that point of view, the flying star that I subscribe to, that I teach, that I propagate, okay, is practical. It is easy to learn. It is easy to use, okay? It deals with both the micro and macro aspects of any space, any dwelling, any home, any office. Everything you learn will apply to your home, apply to your school, apply to the hospital you go to, apply to your workplace, apply to your office. The investment you make, not just in the money you pay, but in the time you spend in learning, is well worth it. Because you see, I appreciate that it takes time to learn things. okay, that you have to invest your time to learning. So I make it as easy as possible, as time convenient as possible, as actually value added as possible. Because I appreciate it when people do it for me, so I want to do this for you as well. And then the most wonderful part about Flying Star is when you start getting incredible results. When you start to say, oh my God, it really works. It's like magic. And then you know, after a while, you start taking it for granted. And that's what a lot of people do. They take Flying Star Feng Shui, or the Feng Shui that I like to teach them, for granted. And because I do know it very well, I can teach it to you. I don't need notes. All I do is to tell you about it. But I do need to put it into a systematic format for learning so that your mind absorbs as much as it can. And I want you to look on it as something that you can learn easily and without too much tension, without you having to be, you don't even have to be really smart about these things. Just have a good heart, a kind heart, a good intention. Do your good feng shui, not just to benefit you, but to benefit your spouse, to benefit your children. I think that's very important, that we have good values, that we bring good values to the learning of feng shui. Okay? So remember now, time dimension cannot be ignored. But what else is there about Flying Star that is so wonderful? Now, in my approach of Flying Star Feng Shui, there are certain principles that I would like you to bear in mind as you learn the course, as we unfold the modules one by one, okay? The chapters in Flying Star Learning, for example. Flying Star Feng Shui is something that can be applied to big dwellings, mansions, big buildings, if you have a business development, the whole shopping mall, the whole city, the whole country. It can be applied in a big way to big spaces. And we call this the big Tai Chi. Okay? We call this the big Tai Chi application. It is the macro aspect of Flying Star Feng Shui, okay? And this takes note of the entire city. You can even do the Feng Shui of an entire continent, okay? That is the big Tai Chi. Now, the big Tai Chi can be viewed as your whole house, or it can be viewed as your whole property. Like if you have a farm, if you're living on a farm, for instance, or for example, you're living in an apartment and there's an apartment building. So you have the big Tai Chi of the whole building and you have the small Tai Chi of your apartment. All right? Can you understand now the concept of space? Okay? Now, when you're inside your apartment or inside your home, the whole house is the big Tai Chi. Then the little rooms, the bedroom, the workroom, the dining room, this can be your small Tai Chi. So therefore, this is a concept of Feng Shui that you have to bear in mind when you're learning a formula, because you define the space. You are the one who establishes what is your Tai Chi, the big space, the overall space, or the small space. And the small space is known as the small Tai Chi. And you know, in Feng Shui, whatever the formula you learn, if you use the concept of the big Tai Chi and the small Tai Chi, this is how you apply all formulas. It's not just Flying Star. But what I'm saying is Flying Star formula also uses, okay, or should be learned within the context of the big Tai Chi and also the small Tai Chi. So therefore, if you want to do Feng Shui for the whole house and you find that the sector that you really want to activate because it's so lucky is your toilet, then you can't do it for the whole house. But you can do it for the small Tai Chi, your living room or your bedroom, because you then mark that out as your small Tai Chi. You know, at its most extreme, you can mark out your desk as your Tai Chi, your work desk. So you have north, south, east, west of your desk. So that's why it is so important to understand the basic concept of the formulas of Feng Shui. And the second thing is we use the compass. Okay, we use compass to demarcate an actual space. For example, I'm sitting here, then I sit here, I put the compass in front of me. I will know what direction I'm facing, whether I'm facing the correct direction or not. For example, right now, I'm sitting here, I'm facing this direction. It is actually the south, the east direction, which is not so good for me. So you notice I always swivel myself around a little bit so that I'm facing a good direction. Okay, but I like the landscape here. I wanted to show you a bit of my space, a bit of my garden. As you can see, I live in Pure Land. I love my garden. It's a tropical garden, but the trees are very well, the grass, the trees, the plants are well manicured because I look after them. I look on myself as a gardener. I love flowers, and I love plants, and I love fish, and I love my dogs. I live with all these people. That's just me and my husband living here together with some helpers, our maids, because all the children have their own homes. But I like space. I like to be able to take a walk in the evening and look at the stars and look up into the skies. I look at the clouds, you know. For me, that is good feng shui. But when I use flying star for my space, I operate on the basis of big tai chi and small tai chi. So you can look on your garden, your ponds, your pool, your backyard. You can look at the whole house layout, or you can look at the rooms, and then you can even decide your layout of rooms, the placement of each of the members of your family within each of the rooms according to Flying Star Feng Shui and its related formula, which is a Qua formula. You can also input that into your practice of Feng Shui. So now, we know that there's big Tai Chi and we know that there's small Tai Chi. Now, in addition to the layout of your rooms, the layout of your space, what Flying Star also directly addresses is it will give you clues as to the best colors, the best kind of furnishings, the flooring, the furniture, the placement of furniture, the kind of art you hang, kind of decor you want. I mean, it's all up to you because you see, Flying Star is multi-dimensional in its uses because of the way it is laid out, because the kind of formula that it is has to do with directions. So it has to do with the compass. You really must learn how to use the compass. So the first thing that I will teach you, which will come in your very first module, will be the Lopan. The Lopan, okay? The Lopan is the Feng Shui compass, and we will introduce you to the Lopan in the next module. And in the compass, you will learn about the 24 directions of the compass. It is very important to know the 24 directions of the compass because Flying Star Feng Shui demarcates homes according to the facing direction of the house, and we have 24 directions that we take note of. So these 24 directions are known as the 24 mountains, and they have the 24 mountain stars. And the impact of each of these 24 directions actually changes from year to year because the different stars that fly into these 24 directions change over time from year to year. Okay? Now, when we talk about the compass, we actually have 3 measurements of north because the Chinese in Feng Shui have 3 plates. We have the heaven plate, we have the earth plate, and we have the mankind plate. And each of these plates, okay, have different measure of north. So while one may use the magnetic north, another plate uses the true north, and another plate uses the Polaris north. And each of this north is 7.5 degrees from each other. So you can see that is all rather technical, but don't worry. Okay, if you are not really numbers oriented, this sort of thing should not bother you because in Flying Star Feng Shui, we use only the earth plate. We use only one plate because the formula of Feng Shui is for yang dwellings. is for houses of the living. So for that, we use the earth plate, and the north that we use, the measurement of north that we use in Flying Star is the magnetic north. All right? And therefore, you can also use any Western style compass, which also measures north as the magnetic north. So it's very important that you understand this. And this is why many years ago, there was this gentleman from Australia who ran around the southern hemisphere telling them to flip the directions, that in the southern hemisphere, everything that occurred in feng shui had to be flipped. So north became south, south became north, east became west, like that. And of course, I actually spent a strenuous 2 years explaining to many people that that was not so, because we have 3 measurements of north, and these measurements of north play a role in what kind of feng shui we're doing. For example, when we are doing yin feng shui, that means when we do feng shui for the cemeteries, you know, and I do know the yin feng shui formulas, except I don't like to practice yin feng shui because I don't like going to cemeteries. It's as simple as that. I don't want to deal with the negativities and the kind of spirits that you see in the cemeteries, okay? There are a lot of bardo spirits who are trapped in a state of bardo in cemeteries. So I prefer not to deal with them, okay? Because I'm not familiar with them. So I don't like to do yin feng shui. But when you practice yin feng shui, you do not use the magnetic north to measure north, okay? You use another plate to measure north. Just like if you do water feng shui, if you are practicing water feng shui, you use a different compass plate. So therefore, the compass, the lopan that I use or that I drew up, that I made specially for my own use, is only based on the magnetic north, and it has only relevance for formulas that apply to yang dwellings, for houses of the living. Okay. So we'll talk about that in the first module, the first chapter of the course. In the second, the next one from that, we will talk about the time periods of feng shui, the year cycles, the cycles of change, the major and the minor periods, the lower, middle, and upper periods, the dominant numbers of each period. Just like now, we are dominated by the number 8. So the 8 becomes very auspicious. It is also very powerful. It is also very strong. And what that says for the world. Basically, this is very much the astrological side of Flying Star Feng Shui. And then we'll look at the 9 charts, okay, and the 9 period numbers. Basically, we're looking at the numbers, the 9 period numbers and the period of 8 charts, okay. Then in the next chapter, we will go deeper into the period of 8. Now this is very important because the sooner we get going on understanding period of 8 charts, the better. The sooner you'll be able to apply to your house. And you have to know what period of 8 means, what trigram it represents, what are the axis specials of period of 8, what are the the attributes of the period of 8 charts. Because the way I'm conducting this course, I want to actually zero in straight away on the charts so that you will understand it. Previously, before computers became so widespread and made our lives so easy, a great deal about Flying Star Feng Shui had to do with how to come out with the Flying Star chart, how you create the Flying Star chart. But now what I will do is I will give you all the charts and I will teach you how to select the chart that is of use to you, that applies to your house. Okay? And then after that, we will spend a big chunk of this course on analyzing the charts and using the charts, analyzing the meanings of the numbers and applying it to your house, to different kinds of homes, to different kind of apartments. And listen, this is very important because the charts are square. And let me tell you, not a single one of you lives in a square-shaped house. Okay? Somehow or other, our homes are not square-shaped. Many of us live in irregular-shaped homes. Okay, and if you live in an apartment, your apartment definitely is irregular shaped. So we need to know how to superimpose the chart onto irregular shaped homes, okay? Then you need to determine the period of your apartment, of your house chart, okay? You need to know how to take facing directions, how to determine facing directions, and how to take direction. Because if you determine your facing direction wrongly, you are taking the wrong direction. Simple. Then of course all your analysis will not be of great use. And then after that, we will focus on the reading of the chart itself, how to identify the stars in the flying star chart, the main star, the water star, the mountain star, and then how to superimpose the annual star and the monthly star, and how to create different charts from this, and how the numbers of the month and the year interact with the chart of the house itself. Now, it sounds complicated and intimidating, but it's not. It's really easy. I promise you. When you study from me, you really think, does this work? It's so easy. And you know what? It does work. And it's very practical. And it's easy because I make it easy for you. Okay? That's why it's easy. But I can also make it very complicated for you until you just don't know what it is you're learning. Okay? And it is not an easy formula to learn. It can be difficult. And many people end up not understanding how to use this formula. It's so important that all along the way, okay, that I give you clues as to how you can make it even easier. Because you need to know the meanings of each of these numbers by themselves and in combination with each other. You need to know what are the auspicious numbers, what are the inauspicious, unlucky numbers. And you need to know the strength of the numbers. And we call these numbers stars. They are known as stars. And they are the period of 8 numbers derived from a period of 8 chart. Then we look at the combinations of numbers, 2 numbers combining, what they mean, what kind of luck they bring you, and then 3 number combinations. Okay, these are what we call the specials. And then from there, we roll into what we call the auspicious specials. And those of you who are looking for new houses, in search of houses, you can actually pinpoint and find houses that are lucky. And if you move into a lucky house, within 1 year, your fortunes increase. Your fortunes see a specific change. And you say, wow, you don't know what happened, but basically. Or likewise, you can move into a house and suddenly all the bad luck descends on you. Okay? So we talk about the auspicious numbers and specials. We talk about the whole 2 combinations, the strings, the parent strings, the pearl strings, the sum of 10. And all the various conditions necessary to activate these special auspicious star combinations. And that's the key to flying star, that you actually are able to identify the sector of your house that is the source of good fortune. It's like your relationship spot or your wealth spot in your house. You need to be able to identify it. And once you identify these spots, guess what? All you have to do is to activate them. And it benefits the whole house. It benefits all the residents, the whole family. And then we look at the cardinal charts. Those whose facing directions face the cardinal directions, north, south, east, west. And then we also look at the secondary direction charts. The houses that faces the secondary directions, southwest, northeast, you know, southeast, northwest, southwest, southeast, all the 4 secondary directions. And they are good too. In fact, they are very good. Okay? And then you learn, I will teach you how to superimpose these charts onto your floor plans, how to read your floor plans. Okay? But you know, you really need to have your floor plan sorted out. You need to draw out a simplified version of your floor plan. You need to take directions and how to superimpose. And there are 3 different methods. Different feng shui masters will teach you 3 different methods. And I will share with you the method I use and why I use those methods. Okay, why I chose to use the method, my reason for it. The superimposing of the charts is very important because then you will see exactly what kind of star numbers are affecting what part of the house, okay? And then finally, we're going to look at a lot of case study examples. We're going to look at the case studies, and we're going to analyze how we use the flying star formula, and we also spend some time in updating the flying star of your house every year, which is why I hold my extravaganzas, because my extravaganzas summarizes over a course of a one-day lecture all the things you need to do for that particular coming year. And this is me updating your flying star feng shui. You can do it yourself or you can do it with me. Okay? You can do your own analysis and then come and check with what I'm going to say, whether or not it fits in. So every year end, I do a flying star annual extravaganza because the time dimension of feng shui is so important. And finally, we'll bring it all together for you so that actually after this online course, you will actually be able to do flying star feng shui yourself. And if you have enough practice, you can help a lot of other people as well. It is that kind of a program. It is not a small program. It is quite a big program that we're putting together here. It's taken me months to put this course together, not just myself, but with Honey, who has been assisting me, and Hanjin, who is actually shooting this soto. We have actually spent quite a lot of time putting this course together to make sure that because you can't come and visit me yet for my Master Practitioner's course, that you can actually learn Flying Star online. And it is a useful course. It is something that you will find useful for you for the rest of your life. It is that kind of course. So with this, I will put an end to today's episode, which is the first episode. And in the next episode, which will be module 1 of the Flying Star course, we will start on our on the learning program of our Flying Star online course. Okay. So I will wish you goodbye and see you the next time.